I used to have a saying of, I didn't want to talk about things I didn't know about. And that was out of wanting to not sound entitled or dumb, like I didn't know what I was talking about. But I've since switched that. Start talking about the things you don't know about. And so I think men, start talking to women about what it means to be in RISE. Have these conversations with women, bring women into the room, and well, how do you see this, and whatever the issue may be, recruitment, retainage, just have those conversations and listen.
Are you speeding the energy transition? Here at the Clean Power Hour, our host Tim Montague bring you the best in solar, batteries, and clean technologies every week. Want to go deeper into decarbonization? We do too. We're here to help you understand and command the commercial, residential, and utility, solar, wind, and storage industries. So let's get to it. Together we can speed the energy transition.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. Today on the Clean Power Hour, Women in Solar. My guest today is Noelle Paige. She is the Vice President of Development for Aspen Power. Welcome to the show, Noelle.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really psyched for this conversation.
Yeah.
We're here in Boston at RE+ Northeast. Just getting ready to go into the trade show and do a bunch of interviews there on the trade show floor. But Noelle, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, you gave me a great introduction. Thank you. Noelle Paige, Vice President of Project Development at Aspen Power. I live in DC, work in New York. I love these shows. I get to see all my friends and walk the floor. I love it so much. But I've been in solar probably about 8 years now. Have background in project management, urban planning, public administration, and before that, I was a ballerina.
It's a good combo.
Yeah, right?
But how did you get into solar specifically?
Sure. It was a little random. So I was involved in kind of sustainability infrastructure through the University of Illinois at Chicago, working in project management. I did my master's in public administration and did a lot with the Chaddock Institute for Sustainable Development. And then I was a grad student looking at jobs on LinkedIn, and I found Cypress Creek Renewables, and they were hiring for zoning and community outreach people. And I thought that was just a title that made a lot of sense for me. Applied, got the job, moved to North Carolina, and here I am 8 years later.
Awesome. And so Cypress is mostly utility scale or both utility and community scale?
Yeah, so when I started, they were doing a lot of utility scale, and that was primarily the team that I was on. I did move over to their project finance team, and so I was exposed to a lot more of the community solar that they were doing. So I think now they have a lot more community solar, but yeah, they've done a little bit of everything.
Great. And then how did you end up coming to Aspen Power?
Yeah, I've kind of hopped around a lot. I have a rap sheet of solar developers on my resume, but I love all of them. I went to Soul Systems right after Cypress, and I met Aaron Bartel, who's Aspen's general counsel, but he was the general counsel at Soul Systems. And you know the solar industry, it's quite small. But I had known the folks at Aspen for a while, and we just kind of stayed in contact, and they reached out about kind of restructuring their project development team, and thought it was a great move.
And Aspen is based in DC?
They're in New York.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of us are kind of sprinkled everywhere, though.
Got it.
Yeah, the main office is in New York.
New York City?
Yep.
Okay, right on.
Yep.
So what is Aspen up to?
Aspen's up to a lot. We're primarily community solar, and work a lot with co-developers in the industry. So we kind of come in as the IPP/financier and then long-term owner-operator. We also have a multifamily real estate arm. That's a small section of the pipeline, but that was new completely to me. I've never done anything residential, so that was a learning curve for me. But
and that multifamily work, is that also community solar, or what exactly is the business model there?
Yeah, so it's primarily in California, and I think it's maybe Title 24. It's California's kind of board of renewables or sustainability effort to kind of require new construction for multifamily units and buildings to have some sort of renewable or offset or something green, basically. So we work with the general contractors or the developers to provide that.
Got it. All right. So anything else about Aspen you'd like my listeners to know before we move on to women in solar? Because I'm very eager to geek out on women in solar.
I love that. Aspen's growing. Aspen is great. It's just such an awesome team. And the growth has just been unreal. It started as a super small company, and I've kind of been like watching them, knowing, the general counsel and a few others that sort of started the business. And then they acquired Safari Energy, so it's just been like explosive, the growth. So.
And can you speak to like the megawatts or gigawatts that are in your portfolio?
Yeah, that's a good question. Somebody's going to get mad that I don't know my OKRs of megawatts.
No worries. All right. So when you say community solar, just to put a pin in that, I think of there's, a handful of states where community solar is really rocking and rolling, like Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, Maine was. I don't know if that was a bit of a boom and a bust maybe, but what are there other places that are hot?
Yeah, I think you hit most
Colorado.
of them. Not Colorado just yet. Maryland, okay. And I'm hearing New Mexico. It might be coming back around. Yep. They had a pilot program, but it was pretty small. I think.
Very small.
Yeah. And Minnesota for a while there too. Haven't heard about them lately.
Yes, it's so interesting, right? How these things ebb and flow. Yeah. Minnesota was an early adopter. They kind of kicked butt in the Midwest, and then they busted, and now Illinois has kind of surpassed them, and we're doing 10 gigs in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
New York is doing a little more, I think, volume-wise, but anyway. And so ironic, and I'm curious what you think about this, that California, our earliest adopter really here in the U.S., I mean, Hawaii's a little further along, but Hawaii's so small, doesn't have a great community solar market.
Yeah.
Their legislation is chronically flawed.
Yeah.
Is there a fix in the works there? Do you know?
Oh gosh, I was really hopeful. What was it, a year or two ago? I think it was right before maybe the 2023 SPI or maybe InfoCast. I don't recall, but we were so close. We were so close to that community solar bill, but it just didn't happen. But legislation always comes back around, right? The IRA is like the Build Back Better, but a little bit different. So I think we'll get there one day.
All right. So women in solar.
Yes.
As I said in the pre-show, women are a vast minority in this industry. It's a real problem for a whole variety of reasons. Obviously in the population, you're 50% of the population, and yet in solar, you're between 10 and 20% maybe. And so just give us a broad strokes, what kind of things are you involved in when it comes to workforce development and getting more women involved in the industry?
Sure. Yeah. WRISE is a great organization for renewable energy. It's the Women in Renewables Industries. So it's a good mix of solar and wind, hydro. We get a little bit of everything in the renewable side. There's also the Women's Energy Network, which is really interesting to me because I'm just solar. I've never done anything else. I've never done wind. I've done a little bit of storage, but I feel like I'm just solar. I need to learn more. But the Women's Energy Network has a big conference every year, and so you get to hear about oil, gas, and nuclear, and kind of the new technologies on that side as well.
And how many people attend that?
Last year it was pretty big. I want to say maybe the size of this, 8,000 to 10,000, 8,000 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's not just women that go to these. It's hosted by women though, and we try to counteract the manels, the all-male panels. So.
Right. Mantles. The dreaded mantle. I love it. I love it. So I've heard about WRISE, but you're the first person that's really engaged that I've spoken with. So what exactly is WRISE doing?
Sure. A lot. So we do a forum every year, the Leadership Forum, and it is, no offense, it is the best conference in this industry.
Wow.
It is so much fun, and the energy is just amazing. And it's like everybody leaves their egos at the door, and you just truly network and you just learn. And it's just such a fantastic environment. But I spoke there last year in 2024, October. It was in DC. And I did a workshop with a recruiter, Cameron Benton from Soul Search, and we spoke about just gender pay gap and labor and workforce and women.
Yep.
Did a lot of research for that. I put on my economist hat and statistician hat and really dove into that, because to talk about that topic, you have to be correct, right? Because people have kind of an emotional reaction to it. And so I just wanted to stick to the facts, wanted to really shed light on some of the issues and show data for it.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's talk about pay gap.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about that? I have my own thoughts, but is it just like an unwritten agreement that humanity has created, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a ton of layers, and the way I like to describe it is sort of in layers, but not sequentially. And so those layers are variables, and that's the status of motherhood, that's your geography, that's your ethnicity, and so on and so on and so on. There's so many variables to that, and some may weigh more for some people in some circumstances. Nothing has it's not sequential, right? But I had an economics teacher in undergrad refer to the pay gap as the mother's gap, which is just nauseating, right? And it's affecting mothers more as they get older. And so that's kind of the trend of where wages get further and further apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's curious. I also think about how in society we compensate college teachers or professors more than we compensate kindergarten teachers. But kindergarten teachers are more influential when it comes to developing young humans, right? By the time you get to college, you're already formed. That tree is growing in a certain direction.
Right.
And so in a way, I feel like kindergarten should be the highest paid profession when it comes to education.
Yeah.
And yet it's inverted. And when I have this conversation with people, they're like, they kind of make up stories about why that is, but it really is just an agreement.
Yeah.
There's no technical reason why kindergarten shouldn't. Everybody needs a doctor, right? Doctoring is a high wage. Everybody needs an attorney. That's another high wage. Everyone needs a kindergarten teacher, but that's a low wage.
Yeah.
Why?
No, that's a great point. And that's a great conversation to be having. We should definitely be having that conversation. And it's bizarre, right? And I think kindergarten teachers get sort of like the babysitter title.
And it scares men away from that industry, actually, right? Men go, wait a minute, that's very low wage. I'm not going there. And so you see a big gender gap in that industry.
Yeah.
But
which contributes to
we have the opposite problem here in the solar industry. In your time, you've been in solar for, you said, 8 years?
Yeah.
Have you seen things changing?
Yes, absolutely. The women in leadership, I think now in the last 4 or 5 years, are just powerhouses. And I love to just look up and then make those people my peers at some point. And I just walk up to the Abby Hoppers of the world, right? President and CEO of SIA. And it's like you're this amazing powerhouse woman, and I get to have a conversation with you, and right. it's amazing. But I think that attitude and just kind of that, again, dropping your ego at the door and having that openness has really helped women network and just have candid conversations about work,
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 3-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.
So I have two questions. First, what can men and male decision makers in solar companies do differently to encourage more women to come into the industry?
Yeah. Stuff like this. Talking to women. I used to have a saying of, I didn't want to talk about things I didn't know about. And that was out of wanting to not sound entitled or dumb, like I didn't know what I was talking about. But I've since switched that. Start talking about the things you don't know about. And so I think men, start talking to women about what it means to be in RISE. Have these conversations with women, bring women into the room, and like, well, how do you see this? And whatever the issue may be, recruitment, retainage, just have those conversations and listen.
Be real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we also have to be more intentional, I think. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of things like RISE, right? We need to organize,
yep.
And we need just to have an awareness that there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an existential threat, but it's a serious problem, mm-hmm. And we can change it, and we are changing it. Maybe too slowly, I don't know. How do you feel? Are you frustrated or?
Honestly, I don't. Well, depends on what day it is, but I try to stay positive. There are, again, just so many amazing female leaders, and also the younger workforce, the Gen Zs. The women are coming up and they're walking right up to you, and they're taking chances and they're bold, and I just love to see that.
Mm. Yeah. So for the women listening, what can women do differently, and how do women get involved in things like RISE?
Yeah.
To find their groove or find their people? I'm just curious what else women should be thinking about and doing.
Yeah. So I don't think women need to do anything differently. If you want to get involved in RISE or WRISE, it's WRISE. There's local chapters. I'm in the DMV chapter. I dabble with the New York chapter. I pretend like I'm in that too because I'm in New York so much. But those organizations and the events like the Leadership Forum, and I'm actually hosting that same workshop I mentioned before that I did at the Leadership Forum in 2 weeks in New York. We got a lot of great feedback, so we're doing it again. We're taking it on the road.
Oh, cool.
But events like that, and again, just being bold and walking up to people. I find people are just way more receptive than you think they're going to be, right? Like I used to sit at Merchandise Mart in grad school and just ask to buy people coffee and ask what their job title was, because I was a ballet dancer. I had no idea. And doing that at a conference, here at RE+, or at the RISE Leadership Forum or any other situation or industry event.
Does that background as a dancer hinder you in any way in the industry, do you think?
Absolutely not. No. I love it. So this is also kind of one of my workshop leadership and workforce development topics.
Yeah.
If I were to say my first job in solar, community outreach, teaching a very niche subject to a demographic that probably doesn't know a lot about it. I was doing that for solar, right? Well, when I was a ballet dancer, I was doing the same thing. I was doing lecture demonstrations in rural communities, going out, doing a build a ballet for students, middle school students, elementary school students, even some high schoolers. We would lay down Marley, do our show, build a ballet. Those kids had probably never heard of Swan Lake before.
Right.
So I was doing the same thing. And so getting out into the community and teaching, I love teaching a niche subject to a demographic or population that doesn't know a lot about it. I'm doing the same thing with solar.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to talk about community acceptance of solar, but first, you're also doing some workforce development things. Mm-hmm. Talk about that work.
Yeah, I am working with an organization called Repowering Schools. I have a webinar today with them. They go into colleges and universities and just introduce solar careers to students, which is a huge effort, and I think there needs to be more of it. And I'm trying to kind of scheme a way that IPPs can be more involved in that kind of effort, because a couple of years ago I went to the IREC, the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, conference, and the data and forecast on the jobs that we're going to need to keep up with demand of energy transition or just current goals is insane. And we don't have it. And so the more students we can connect with, the better.
Yeah, and I think we should even go into high schools.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of young people know how vibrant the solar, wind, battery storage industries are. There's also electrification. I don't care pick your slice, right, of that pie. It's pure growth for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Literally. And there are a few industries. And AI would be another maybe. Scary, more scary, I would say, than solar, but solar, it's such a feel good, right? We're cleaning the air. We're creating a safer, healthier future for humanity. What's not to love?
Yeah, I know.
Technology for a better future. It's a beautiful thing. We just need more of it, right? And we need a lot more people in the industry. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about how communities in rural America are responding to this wave. It is a wave, right? And one of the things that we forget sometimes as solar professionals is that because of the way the grid is built, some communities are more impacted than others, right? Where those substations are, there you get a cluster of activity of solar and wind, right? And so some communities can start to feel like, oh my goodness, another solar project or another infrastructure project. And that's another thing I've noticed in Illinois is that there's pipelines. There's a lot of pipelines. And so there's a certain fatigue that communities start to experience, and they're pushing back. We call this NIMBYism. It's not a dirty word, I don't think. It's just a phenomenon, right? Not in my backyard. And it is certainly a right for communities to say this, but communities are often misinformed about what are the benefits, what is solar, what does it mean from a land use perspective, and what are the goods, the economic goods, the environmental goods. They generally have a very poor understanding of what those goods are. But from your perspective, what is happening in rural America around solar and communities?
Yeah, it's a toss-up, honestly. Some communities respond wonderfully, and they're very supportive. They understand the tax benefit, the revenue, that's going to benefit their communities. They understand that, the farmer that's leasing their land is benefiting from this, and they have the right to choose what to do with their land. Other communities, like you said, are pushing back, and they do have the right to do that. And it's unfortunate that those communities feel taken advantage of by infrastructure projects. But that's on us. That's on IPPs. That's on developers to be connected to the community. Don't just go in and throw your site plan to the building inspector, the zoning officer. Start with the local church. Talk to your landowner. What's an organization here that we could help with? How do we make this like more wholesome than just like, I want to get my project done,
right?
And it's not to be rah-rah about it, right? But it's more authentic if you have those conversations and you just be respectful of these communities.
It is a change, and a lot of the projects are going into what is historically farm ground. Either we're either feeding livestock on that ground, or we're growing cash crops like corn and beans. And I live in America's breadbasket, some of the best farmland in America in Champaign County, and we're going to convert some small fraction. That's another thing, I guess, that people don't realize is it's only 1 or 2% of the landscape that we need to completely green the grid, right? It's not a huge amount of real estate. We've already built over 6% of the landscape with roads and buildings, right, in the U.S.
Yeah. And parking lots.
And parking lots. That
take
drives
up
me
so
nuts.
Much land, right?
Yeah, I heard a crazy statistic that in a city like LA, I think 30% of the landscape is parking.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So solar canopies, there's the future there, hopefully.
Yes, for sure.
But so getting involved in communities, I love that. What else do you say to developers? Because I think we need to rise all boats here. Some developers are doing it right, like you say, and getting involved. Apex kind of stands out in this regard, in my opinion. Their ground game is very good. They set up websites for projects so that people can put their name on the project and get involved, remotely. But what are some other best practices that developers can utilize?
Yeah, I think the good old-fashioned community organizing, host a community meeting, mail merge your parcels and your addresses, invite the neighbors out, say, hey, I'm going to be here, and just have a candid conversation. It doesn't have to be a super formal thing, and I love the websites though. That's great because that just gives 24/7 access and contact submission, right? If you have a question, and like commonly fun facts that are mistaken about solar, and just kind of have it all laid out in one place. So that's a great idea. We have a couple of projects that we've had websites for in the past. But yeah, good old community meeting. Just really show face. FaceTime is really important. And now COVID is behind us, we can do that. And that was a huge challenge, right? In 2020 and 2021, all of the planning board meetings were virtual. And I think that contributes a little bit to the wave right now that we're seeing a lot more NIMBYism, it feels like. It's because people felt like they got taken advantage of and they got too separated from what was going on in their community.
Well, in our last minute together, Noelle, we're here at RE Plus Boston, RE Plus Northeast. I just call it
I
RE
say the
Plus
same
Boston.
thing.
A little easier to say.
I think that's on my out of office, actually. I should probably change that.
And, for me, one of the things I love is the networking, meeting new friends, reconnecting with old friends. I'm a geek for technology. I love seeing what's going on in solar and batteries. But what are you looking forward to today?
Today, gosh, there is an event with WRISE. The WRISE ladies here are getting together. We're going to see each other in 2 weeks at that workshop I mentioned. But we are planning the 20th anniversary gala right now. I'm on the planning committee for that.
Oh, sweet.
So we're gonna chat about that and kind of make a game
When is
plan.
that?
That is June 26th in New York City.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you heard it here?
Should be a good event.
June in New York, the WRISE Gala.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like our listeners to know before we say sayonara?
No, I think we covered a lot. Thank you.
We did.
This is great.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you, Noelle Paige with Aspen Power, Vice President of Development for Aspen Power. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Please give us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with my listeners on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me on the website. And with that, I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.